Hebrews, Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. It's our Israelite Advanced Bible Study Night, 26th of March, 2022. Uh, we'll be reading out of the book of Joshua, chapters 68, 69, and 70. We may have to read a little more, but I know we're going to read those chapters. You can go into to our YouTube channel, The Prophets of Awakening. Check out our videos. We have over 900 or so videos that you can go through, listen to, and get information, get some dots connected for you in the truth of the Holy Scriptures. And if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And for those who want to support the channel, help it move along, we have our cash up at the bottom of the screen. It would be greatly appreciated. Okay. So with that being said, this is a non-Messianic channel. With that I mean we deal with the Tanakh and the Torah. Tanakh being the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, and the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses by the Lord of Hosts. Okay. Shalom and welcome to the channel, and welcome to our advanced Bible study. Okay. We're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence, prayer, read the Psalms. We have the current events, and need to know information. Then we'll open it up for some Q&A, dialogue, or anybody have any comments. Then we'll go into our reading out of the Tanakh, which is, out of the book of Joshua, which is chapter 68, 69, 7. Okay? And we'll break those chapters down and get the meaning out of it. Okay? With that being said, moment of silence is for the Lord of Hosts, and all that he's doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days. Okay, excuse me. O Lord, righteousness and uprightness belongeth unto thee. Therefore we come before thee at this hour, seeking thy face, and looking for righteousness and uprightness, that we may walk before thee as thy servants David, Samuel, and Hezekiah did, that we may walk before thee in truth and in righteousness and in rightness of heart. Give unto us, O Lord, an understanding heart, that we may discern between good and bad. For we desire to walk after thee, O Lord, and keep your commandments, and your testimony, and your statutes with all our heart and soul, to perform the words of this covenant that was written down by your prophets. So, Lord, allow thy face to shine upon thy people. Hear our plea, hear and do, O Lord, and hide not thy face from us, for we need you so very much at this hour. Peace be unto you. Okay. Let me read the psalm. Okay. Okay, I'll read Psalms 29. Says, the voice of the Lord in the storm. It's a psalm of David. Give unto the Lord, O ye mighty, give unto the Lord glory and strength. Give unto the Lord thy glory due unto his name. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. The voice of the Lord is upon us. The God of glory thundereth. The Lord is upon many waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is full of majesty. The voice of the Lord breaketh the cedars, yea, the Lord breaketh the cedars of Lebanon, and maketh them also to skip like a calf. Lebanon is Syria like a young or unicorn. The voice of the Lord divideth the flames of fire. The voice of the Lord shaketh the wilderness. The Lord shaketh the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord maketh the hinds of calves, and discovereth the forest. In his temple doeth everyone speak of his glory. The Lord sitteth upon the flood, yea, the Lord sitteth king forever. The Lord will give strength unto his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. So that's Psalms 29. It said the voice of the Lord in the storm. So we've been dealing with this channel for a while. We know who our Redeemer is. The Lord of hosts is Michael, the archangel. And we see that at the very beginning of this book, and it says, uh, chapter 1 of Genesis 1 and 2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So we see Yahweh in chapter 1, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1, and then his right hand man, the Lord of hosts, Spirit of God that's moving upon the waters. And then when you go back to this chapter, you'll see, 29 and 3, the voice of the Lord is upon the waters. The God of glory thundered. The Lord is upon many waters. There you go again. Then we see a second witness. It says 10. The Lord sitteth upon the flood. Yea, the Lord sitteth king forever. Okay. Any comments? Okay. We go to some current events. Okay.
Let's turn to West Asia now. Very important alliance is reaching its breaking point. The one between Israel and the US. It's been a rock-solid one, an alliance that has shaped modern West Asia. But the Gaza war could snap it. On Monday, the United Nations Security Council voted on a new ceasefire proposal. Now, normally, the US would have vetoed it, but this time they did not. 14 UNSC members supported the resolution and the United States abstained. So the ceasefire resolution was passed. It was the first since the war broke out in October. And what does this resolution say? Well, broadly, it says three things. One, a ceasefire during the month of Ramadan. Two, the release of all hostages held by Hamas. And three, more aid shipments to Gaza. Now, in the past, the US had opposed all such resolutions. They vetoed 3 of them in 6 months. So what has changed now? What has changed is the situation in Gaza. Some 32,000 Palestinians have been killed. Almost 70% of the victims are women and children. Plus, humanitarian aid is drying up. Most of Gaza is on the brink of famine. So Joe Biden is feeling the pressure. Arab nations are asking him to change his position. Muslim Americans are abandoning him. So the US decided to abstain from voting. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is quite upset with Biden. In fact, listen to his statement. I'm quoting, "The United States has abandoned its policy in the United Nations today. This resolution will harm both the war effort and the effort to release the hostages." But Washington does not see it that way. They say their policy is unchanged.
We're kind of perplexed by this. The Prime Minister's office seems to be indicating through public statements that we somehow changed here. We haven't. And we get to decide what our policy is.
So the US is changing its policy, but they say they're not. Will Netanyahu play along is the question. An Israeli delegation was supposed to visit the US this week, but Prime Minister Netanyahu has cancelled it. His defense minister also said the war will continue, meaning no ceasefire in Gaza. But can Israel really do that? Can they ignore a United Nations Security Council resolution? UN officials say they cannot. Israel is a member of the United Nations, therefore all UNSC resolutions are binding on them. But the United States has a different idea. They say this resolution is non-binding.
So with respect to the first resolution, it is our interpretation of this resolution that it is non-binding. For any detail on that, I would refer you to the office of our ambassador at the United Nations, who can, of course, speak in more detail of how we reached that conclusion.
So there's major legal confusion here, but politically, it's a signal from the US. Yes, they have changed their policy, but it's not a U-turn yet. It's not a complete abandonment of Israel. at least not yet. But we could easily reach that stage. You see, Joe Biden has all the leverage here. Most major powers have turned against Israel. Even US rivals are backing Palestine, so it's not like Netanyahu can go running to the other side. Because Israel is a regional power, it cannot sustain a war against global opinion. Not like the US did in Iraq or like Russia is doing in Ukraine. Because eventually Israel will feel the heat, and Biden knows this. He's got a lot more levers to pull. The most important being military aid. Israel has been the biggest recipient of US aid since the Second World War. Do you know how much money we're talking about here? Almost $124 billion. That's what America has given Israel. In recent years, the annual aid has been $3.3 billion. That's 15% of Israel's military budget. We're talking about missiles, fighter jets, bullets, ammunition. Last month, a new plan was presented in the US Congress, an aid package worth $17 billion. Again, pure military aid. And it's not just about the money. It's also about the type of weapons. You may have heard about Israel's Iron Dome. It shoots down rockets and missiles fired at Israel. The Iron Dome. Now, the Iron Dome is a joint project. Israel and the US produce it together. So when the Iron Dome runs low on ammo, the US refills it. What if Biden holds back on that? Israel could be left vulnerable. So far, Joe Biden has not done that. In fact, he's expanded his military aid since the war broke out. I've got some numbers for you there. By December, the US had spent some 230 cargo planes and 20 ships to Israel. And what was in these shipments? 21,000 precision-guided munitions, thousands of bunker busters, 200 kamikaze drones, 57,000 artillery shells, and 15,000 bombs. All of this in less than 6 months. So the takeaway is quite clear. Israel may be fighting the war in Gaza, but their weapons are American. If Joe Biden cuts off those shipments, Israel will struggle. They may defeat Hamas in Gaza, but they will struggle to replenish their arsenal. It's a big lever for Joe Biden. The question is, will he use it?
Okay, any comments on that? Anybody heard anything about that? Okay.
No, sir, I haven't heard about it. I know he went over to Israel last year, but I haven't heard about that part.
Okay. You got to follow up on that.
Shameful, appalling. These are the reactions to the U.S. vote to abstain on the UN resolution which called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
This action reflects yet another major break between Israel and the United States over the war to defeat Hamas. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
The draft resolution has been adopted.
The non-binding resolution passed unanimously with the U.S. abstaining. It was the first UN Security Council ceasefire demand to pass since the beginning of the war. The resolution read in part, an immediate ceasefire for the month of Ramadan, respected by all parties, leading to a lasting, sustainable ceasefire. Separately, it also called for an immediate and unconditional release of all the hostages. The resolution didn't condemn Hamas or mention the atrocities of October 7th. Despite the abstention, the White House said it reflected no change in its policy.
It's very consistent with everything that we've been saying we want to get done here. And we get to decide what our policy is. The Prime Minister's office seems to be indicating through public statements that we somehow changed here. We haven't.
But after the vote, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu canceled the visit by his national
Well, I join with those who are appalled by what the U.S. is doing here. It's giving aid and comfort to Hamas. It's a terror group. What they did on October 7th is absolutely inexcusable. And they have vowed to repeat it again and again and again until Israel is wiped off the map. Israel has to defend itself. Hamas can have Hamas still in control of Gaza. That's an end game that the entire world should get behind, because the next target for Hamas is not Israel, it's us. They're an arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. They have vowed to do this to the entire world. They had control of Egypt for a brief period of time, but there's a reason the Muslims in Egypt declared them illegal. There's a reason they've been in jail there, because they incite violence wherever they go. And we're seeing this again and again. When are we going to wake up to the reality of what Hamas is and how they cannot be in power any longer? All the international pressure should be put on Hamas. Release the hostages, unconditionally surrender, release Gaza from your cruel grip. Now, when you look at the humanitarian crisis, what's the main cause of that? It's Hamas, it's not Israel. You can say, well, it's the war and all of these things. Who started the war? Before the war, there was a survey of the people of Gaza. 68% of them said they had food insecurity, which means they were going hungry. There was no IDF anywhere near them. They had complete control of Gaza. They were getting massive international aid, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they couldn't feed their own people. Why? Because they were putting all the money into these tunnels and into rockets and into planning attacks against Israel. We can't trust them now to give humanitarian aid to starving people. It's going to Gaza, but it's not reaching the people. Why? Because of Hamas. So in any ceasefire, do you think that that's going to change if Hamas is still in control? The answer quite clearly is no. Hamas is not the only terror group that uses human shields. Hezbollah is using similar tactics in its attacks on northern Israel. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Evidence shows hidden weapons in densely populated areas, hoping Israel would hit those locations. In this CBN News exclusive report, George Thomas shows us how the terrorist group uses Christian farms in southern Lebanon to target Israel.
3 kilometers from here, you can see my village there. You can see my olive orchards, my pine trees, and my pecan trees. They get shelled every day since the beginning of war.
Joseph, a Christian farmer here, and 12 of his workers recently came very close to losing their lives.
I saw death in my eyes.
We're concealing his identity because he lives among Hezbollah supporters. The farm sits near the South Lebanon border, close to the Israeli town of Metula. Since the Hamas October 7th attack, his village and adjacent farm have come under constant Israeli shelling. March 13th, they were on the farm when Israel struck.
2 minutes after reaching the farm, they hit us with a 120-millimeter mortar. I got hit by shrapnel on my arm, and when the second mortar was coming, I told the guys to hit the ground and stay flat. It landed 30 meters away from us.
Here is why Israel often targets his and other nearby farms. CBN News has obtained exclusive pictures and videos showing how Hezbollah today here in the southern part of Lebanon is using farms owned by Christians in order to launch their missile attacks against Israel. Joseph took these images a few days after that strike, showing multiple Hezbollah missile systems in the middle of his olive grove.
They keep using our land as a launching pad. They assemble their missiles here, then fire them into Israel.
He's been losing money since daily border fights erupted 5 months ago.
We don't want our land to be a staging ground for war between these two parties. We take no part in this. What's happening in Gaza is not our war.
Joseph says he's repeatedly asked the Lebanese army to intervene, hoping to stop Hezbollah fighters from using his farm, but to no avail. South Lebanon is under Hezbollah control. Joseph says Lebanese authorities have little sway over the terrorist group.
We have become accustomed to these strikes happening to us because we live close to the Israeli borders. Sadly, we have no say in peace or war. We Christians always pay the price.
Okay. Any comments? Seems like to me that the tide turn, like the scriptures say that he's going to turn back to us and he's going to put everything that was happening to us is going to be on them. We can see that that's transpiring right in front of our face. Okay, this was unheard of 3 years ago. That Israel, the United States would be breaking away from Israel. Okay, so we're gonna play this right here. This is need to know information. I don't know if anybody heard about it. It happened this morning.
News. A cargo ship has actually crashed into a pillar that holds up the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland. This is huge news. And the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention today is because this is going to impact the local economy plus the U.S. economy. In addition to that, as of right now, we do know there's about 20 missing people that were on the bridge. There were cars, there were working crews, there was even a tractor trailer crossing the bridge at that time. I want to play you this clip just so that you can kind of see exactly what happened. It's just going to be a short clip and then we'll discuss it a little bit more. But look at this. This is the exact moment that the bridge collapsed. Now, these things happen. We do know that normally in this situation, when you are in a tight area like in the Patapsco River, what normally happens is you have local pilots that are piloting these ships. Well, we don't know exactly what's happening yet. They're still under investigation. But again, the big news here is there's people missing. And the second thing, this is going to cause a lot of issues for the local economy for many months. Many months. So we're going to get to all that in just a moment. All I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. Now, let's begin. So this event, which they're calling a mass casualty event, this took place about 1:30 a.m. this morning. This morning, it's March 26th. This is actually turning into a massive issue. Now, I want to show you this. I want to play you this clip really quick, and I'll just talk over it. This is as of the sun coming up. This is kind of what we're seeing. Okay, so obviously the ship right there where it's at, that is where one of the pillars was. It hit that pillar. The ship you can see is kind of holding up part of the bridge. The rest of the bridge is underwater. There were working crews reportedly working on the bridge. They normally do this every single night, and they were pouring concrete. Well, the issue now is this entire bridge has to be pretty much rebuilt. And this is why some are saying it's going to be a huge issue for the entire city and the country, because this is a very important bridge. Okay, let me just explain some stuff here. It says the Francis Scott Key Bridge was very important and a valuable bridge. The Baltimore Port, okay, which you can see right here, okay, you can see the Seagirt Maritime Terminal, Port of Baltimore, right here. This is the 13th most important U.S. port for foreign trade, right here. Here's the issue, though, okay, because you're probably thinking, why would this bridge really matter? Why is this bridge such a big deal to the port that's clear over here? We can still get products from this port and transport them through the different roadways, right? You don't have to go over this bridge. Here's the problem. How do you get into this port from here? There's no other way to get into the port because this bridge is now blocking it. This bridge is down. It's in the water. That's the reason why this is such a big deal. It also says, according to reports, it says experts believe that the impact on the city and the economy will be catastrophic. This port could be unusable for several months as city workers work to reconstruct the bridge, and this could go up to a year. So if that is the case, and we are about to see that this bridge is going to be in the way the entire time, one, no traffic can get across it. Two, no container ships can get through because they're going to have to pull the wreckage out of the water. They're going to have to rebuild, some of these supports and actually reconstruct the bridge. So again, it's a huge issue, and that is not even taking into consideration how long the investigation is going to be. It's not like we're going to get a team out there and a crew out there tonight and start pulling the wreckage out of the water so that ships can go through. That's probably not going to happen. Again, it's part of the issue. Now,
okay, anybody heard anything about that? It happened this morning in the comments.
Shalom, I heard about it. Yes, sir.
Okay, no comments?
Yes, sir. I heard about it this morning. I don't know. It's just a coincidence. Is that bridge and the shipping involved again, and that's a major hub that they use. So yeah, I think we're gonna hear more about that when it comes to the shipping routes through that way when it comes to the goods.
Okay, yeah. It reminds me of what happened with the Panama Canal with the container ship. It's like all this stuff being staged, because we already know it's going to be. We already know it's going to be holdups, and the prices they're going to skyrocket the prices. Same thing they did with the other situation in Panama Canal. Whenever that incident happened with the container ship over there, it's like all of a sudden it's these container ships that's it's just something fishy to me. Okay. Yeah. So with that being said, I'm gonna go to I'm opening it up for some Q&A questions or comments about anything that we came across you want to talk about, or something you heard on the channel or on one of our videos. Anybody got anything they want to bring up? Okay, yeah. So I was reading the other day, and it came across. It never dawned on me. I know most people should know, they've been on this line long enough, that how the comparison between the church fathers, the so-called church fathers in the very beginning. I tell that story all the time, how they was finagling out, they got a hold of our scriptures, then they ended up in a major part of them, a lot of Greeks. And, Greeks and Edomites were in Alexandria, Egypt. And that's where a lot of these so-called books that they got, that they put into the New Testament come from, when they was bouncing off our records, our scriptures, and bouncing off of them and concocted JC. But a lot of it is, not only was they copying off of what we had going on, but they was dealing with the system that was in place in Egypt, Egyptian Book of the Dead, and how all that worked with Horus, Cyrus and all that. So one of the things was that they had this thing in Egypt where you call it the lion's paw, where you grab a person at a certain area, at a certain degree, or a certain angle. It's called perpendicular, or like the lion's paw. You just be raising from the dead. Say like coming forth. Call it. It's just like the coming forth. It's just like like I said, we got Hebrew idioms and the same way that we say things, and same things that we did in our culture. The same way with the Egyptians. That was something that they did tied to the religious system that they had. So anyway, I'm gonna take you to John chapter 14, verse 43. Then I explain it. John, New Testament. And it just I was looking at that and I said, okay, well, finally dawned on me that what was going on. So I'm in chapter 14, John, let's see, verse 43. It's tied to story of Lazarus. Okay, so it says, let's see if I'm in the right place. Let's see. Look like that's it. Let's see. Okay, well, I didn't wrote down the wrong. I think I wrote down the wrong chapter. Let me see. Yeah, it's right here. It's in 11. My bad. 11 and 43. So it says, I started at verse 41. It says, then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid, right? And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me, and I knew that thou hearest me always, but because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. And when he, this is the verse right here, and when he thus had spoken, he cried, okay, with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. See that right there? Lazarus, come forth. So that's straight out of Egypt, straight out of Egyptian culture. Like I was telling you about that line, that perpendicular line, Paul, however they call it, where you raise a man from, it's a process the Masons use it. It all come out of Egypt. But so right here, they taking this right out of the playbook, out of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So you say, what are you talking about? Osar or Haru, when you understand what these characters are in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, Haru raised Asar the same way. You might want to go check that out. I'm just telling you. Like, so Haru did the same thing to Asar, called him forth. So all this is they just replaced the characters. They put Jesus and John there, but it's actually the story is coming from out of Egypt with Haru and Asar. He called him forth, raised him from the dead. So, like I said, we don't see the Creator, Yahweh, and his angels in the Old Testament dealing with death in this way. But that's exactly how the Egyptians dealt with death. But the Most High, he's a God, he's a tree of life. He's a tree of, he deals with life. He's a living God. So all this stuff is tied to the Egyptian Book of Dead. Even when he passed away, he went down to, he said he came from the Father, but as soon as he died, he went down into hell and Hades. And even that, I was looking at the other night, is if you want to check it out for yourself, it's Ananias in the underworld. It's the name of the video. So it's a story, a legend before the Romans even came into power. Before the fourth beast brought itself on the scene, the Romans had this story about Ananias, a Roman soldier that died and went to Hades. So that's where all this coming from. It's parts, like we said, when you understand what Hellenization is, that's where all this coming from. It's a amalgamation of all these different things they got from their religions and from the way they, paganism. So yeah, check that out. It's Ananias in the underworld. Name of it. So check it out. So anyway, I'm gonna play this, and then like I said, I'm gonna read out of Jasher 68 and 69 and 70. If I have to read some more, I read. But let me see. Yeah. So play this is like some commonalities between the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the New Testament that a lot of people don't really know about. Check it out. Okay.
Many connections have been made between different cultures and religions. One particularly fascinating link is the relationship between Jesus Christ, Christianity, and ancient Egypt. What's happening, guys? Kenton here. You're watching FTD Facts. I got a very surprising one coming up, so let's jump in.
Facts.
We have number 10, the virgin birth. So this whole concept of the virgin birth is actually something that's not unique to Christianity. It also appears in ancient Egyptian mythology. In one version of the story, the god Horus is born to the goddess Isis through parthenogenesis, meaning that she becomes pregnant without the involvement of a male partner. Similarly, when we take a look inside of Christianity, Jesus is said to have been born to a virgin named Mary. Coming in at the number 9 spot, we have the resurrection. The idea of resurrection is another very common thread between ancient Egyptian religion and Christianity. In the Egyptian myth of Osiris, the god is killed by his brother Set, but then brought back to life by his sister wife Isis. In Christianity, Jesus is said to have risen from the dead after his crucifixion.
Okay, so this one of the things, listening to that, it connected some dots for me. You know, the Spirit, Lord, the Holy Spirit. So I was always, I mean, I talk about it a lot, but I was like, why in the world? You got 12 disciples, right? 3 years. He all over the place with these 12 disciples. But when they buried him and he died, well, he died. They put him in the tomb. You know, the third day he resurrected. When he resurrected, it was 4 Marys at the tomb. Women all over the place. They got your answer right there. So when Seth killed Osar, his wife, which is his sister, when they found all the parts, he killed him and divided his body up in 14 parts and buried each part in different parts around Egypt. But his phallus, he threw it in the river for the crocodiles to get. So the crocodiles ate his phallus. So that's his way of his reproduction. He don't have it no more. So when she got all the parts, put them back together, he didn't have no reproductive parts. So that's how Horus was immaculately conceived, right? So that's where it originated from. That's where JC come from, the story of JC. So, but anyway, it was Osiris, Isis, his sister, that put all this, you know, when he was resurrected. That's who put all his parts back together, was Isis. So that's why all these women married all of them around the tomb. Anyway, so.
He was buried in a tomb, and then on the third day, he rose again. That's just another very fascinating connection there. Let's talk about anointed ones at number 8. Both ancient Egyptian religion and Christianity have figures who are referred to as anointed ones. By the way, that's what the term Christ means, the anointed one. In Egypt, the pharaohs were believed to be anointed by the gods to rule over the people. And when we take a look at the religion of Christianity, Jesus is often called the anointed one or the Messiah, which means anointed one in Hebrew. Also, Christos or Christ, that's where we get that term from, also means the same thing, anointed. There's also another very interesting link with baptism is a very important rite in Christianity, and it also has roots in ancient Egypt.
Exactly.
In Egyptian mythology, the god Horus was baptized in the Nile River by the god Thoth. This ritual was believed to give Horus the power to rule over the living and also the power to rule over the dead. Similarly, Christians believe that baptism washes away the sins and grants new life in Christ. So it symbolizes being born again, dead to living. Number 6 leads us to the Trinity. So the concept of the Trinity, the idea that there is one God in 3 persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, is actually a very central Christian doctrine. Now, there are certain Christian groups that do not believe in the doctrine of the Trinity, but generally speaking, Christians believe in the concept of Trinity. However, the idea of a Trinity of gods also appears in ancient Egyptian religion. The gods Osiris, Isis, and Horus are sometimes referred to as a trinity in Egyptian texts. From there, we look at number 5, miracles. Both ancient Egyptian religion and Christianity have stories of miraculous events. In Egypt, the gods were believed to perform miracles to help their followers. Like, for example, the god Thoth was said to have healed a prince's eye by spitting on it. Now, when we look at biblical texts in Christianity, Jesus is said to have performed many miracles, such as healing sick people, feeding multitudes of people, even healing blind, right? Jesus had spit on some clay, according to the Bible, and put it over a blind man's eye, and he was able to see. We also find another interesting link when it comes to sun imagery. The sun played an important role in ancient Egyptian religion, and it also appears in Christian symbolism. In Egypt, the sun was seen as a symbol of life and rebirth, and many of the gods were associated with the sun. Now, when we look at Christianity, the image of the sun is often used to represent Christ's resurrection and victory over death. Next up, at number 3, good and evil. These concepts, good and evil, are present in both ancient Egyptian religion and also Christian religion. In Egypt, the god Osiris represents goodness, while his brother Set represents evil. Then, when we take a look at Christianity, God is seen as the embodiment of all that is good, while Satan is the personification of evil. So we see those two opposing forces there, good and evil. Eternal life comes up next at number 2. This is a very interesting link. The idea of eternal life is definitely central to both ancient Egyptian religion and the religion of Christianity. When we take a look at Egyptian religion, the afterlife was believed to be a continuation of earthly life, actually. And the soul needed to pass certain tests in order to enter into the afterlife. Also, when we look at Christianity, believers are promised eternal life in heaven if they have faith in Jesus. So it's almost like a continuation of life. Even if you are dead, you can actually be resurrected and continue the life, but just in a new and different way. But either way, definitely afterlife is something that is huge in both religions, and it's also a very fascinating link. Ending this episode off at number 1, we're going to be taking a look at some general symbolism. Both Egyptian religion and Christianity use symbolism to convey deeper meanings. In Egyptian religion, many of the gods were represented by animals, let's say, or even objects, such as the ibis bird representing Thoth, and Thoth was the god of writing and wisdom. And in Christian religion, symbols such as the cross, the dove representing the Holy Spirit, as well as the fish, is often used to represent various aspects of the Christian faith. On that note, we conclude this episode looking at 10 surprising connections with Jesus and ancient Egyptian religion.
Okay, any comments on that? Anybody got any comments on that? Get anything out of that? Okay, yeah, like I said, it's overwhelming. You know, that's just 10 the similarities, but you can see it's at the point where it's no way that it's a coincidence. You know what I mean? Like I said, even with you know, in the Old Testament with Elijah and Elisha and Elijah, the both of them performed miracles. I think it was 14. And if you look at the miracles that Elijah and Elisha performed in the Old Testament, JC did the same thing in the New Testament. Exact same miracles. So they just got them, plucked them off the back of Elisha and Elijah and put them on him after they created him. Okay? Like I said, these comparisons, the eye opening. Can't get around it. Okay? So with that being said, I got this video right here. And this is what I mean. This is a prime example of what I mean about us being brainwashed. And when we come to find out, even the previous video with the guy was talking about the difference in how America is betraying Israel because of they abandoning Israel, and Israel have all the rights in the world to do what they doing with Hamas, but they can't see the other side of it, and it's because of, like I said, from the time you're born to 18 years old and even beyond, you brainwashed. You doing no research, no nothing, just taking for what's being given you from a kid all the way to an adult that is legitimate. And now that the Creator is waking people up, and the ones that's not studying and not doing the research, they looking crazy because they haven't did no research. They just with a blind eye, sucking up these doctrines that that's going nowhere, didn't mean nothing, and they standing trying to offend it or defend it, and it's they're looking ludicrous. So these guys right here is dealing with. We're just gonna listen to some of the things being said, but they're saying how about the lineages. That's how the Creator operates through lineages and through DNA, right? So check it out.
Platforms about when we're talking about the Jewish people, and that there's Jews of different races and different backgrounds and just branches and all kinds of stuff. And I ended up having an idea about it, but it was spawned by talking about these comments. And so Jackson gave us some background and like a starting point for this.
Yeah, and I'm always looking at the comments, because I know we're missing stuff. We don't have everything.
Totally, yeah.
Right.
And when I see it, just a series of comments over the course of the video, I'm like, maybe I'm missing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is like there's the Ashkenazi, I don't even know if I'm saying this right, Ashkenazi Jews, and then there's the Sephardic Jews.
Okay.
And so the Ashkenazi Jews come from Russia, but the theory is that they're not ethnically Jewish.
Okay.
Their religious converts were basically white Russians.
But it's generation after generation of being
Ukraine,
following Judaism.
The Talmud, yeah. Okay. And then the Sephardic, lots of times they relate to Spain and Portugal and the things that happened there. I remember when the Muslims came up and then the Europeans drove them out. But they're ethnically descendants of Abraham. This is how the story goes. Okay. And there's all this controversy in here about because there's Christian identitarians who say white people are the real Jews, and then really everybody's trying to get what's the ethnic thing. And then I would reference Martin Luther, which we did a video on. I'll put a link below. But he said, I don't care about your birthright, because birthright's not the most important thing. If you want to see that argument, you can read the book or watch the episode. Also, if you look in the Bible in the New Testament says that there's now a spiritual house of Israel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's people who believe in Jesus.
Right.
So I don't really want to quibble who's the Jewiest of the Jews. Paul says he's the Jew of Jews. I mean, whatever,
Yeah, I got a question. Do birthright matter? Can anybody comment on that?
Shalom. I'll say yes, because of the seed. It does matter.
Okay. You see what I mean? You just hollered out that. How can you even deal with this situation when you're saying that the birthright don't matter when the birthright is everything? And that's explained in the story with Jacob and Esau, how important the birthright is. Okay.
But I don't really want to quibble. But basically, I said maybe we should do some historical research on this and do an episode on this.
Okay.
And then he just basically blew me out of the water with a simple point.
Yeah. So this, to me, the ethnicity has nothing to do with this. This isn't a race point or anything like that. This is a group of people, no matter what their DNA says, that believes that they are better than everyone else, and they are willing to treat people and do whatever they want to everyone else because they are better, because that's what they're taught as their religion in the Talmud. And so I don't care if you came from Abraham or if you're white or Ethiopian or anything. If you're following these rules, you can't play nice with everyone else. And that's my point.
It's a beautiful point because it just wrecks my whole idea. And it's like, if you care about the birthright stuff and you don't buy the Martin Luther thing, or you know, like you want to prove that you're the real Jews or whatever, like the Black Hebrew Israelites, Christian, there's all types of groups, then go for that. But we're really talking about how you treat people. I want to live in a country where we don't have to pay interest.
Right.
There's a small group of people charging everybody interest.
Right.
You know? So we got a conflict here. And I don't care if the small group of people is an Ethiopian Black Jew, because we're talking about religious Jews here.
Right.
Right? A Nordic German Jew convert, you know, and a Chinese Jew. If those are the three kingpins, I don't care what your ethnicity is.
Yeah, I feel like we're just back into the Jew trap.
Right.
And people say Jew, and we're not really sure. What do you mean by that? Is it the religion? Is it DNA? Or is it because you're from Israel?
Right.
And it's just, it's so confusing because nobody uses different terms for it. If you did, this wouldn't even be a subject.
Right.
We wouldn't know what everyone was talking about.
Right. And we've had this idea for a long time, because I'm going to link back, I'm going to go way back to an old video, the most racist person in history.
Okay.
Do you remember we talked about Adolf Hitler?
Right.
And we talked about how he discriminated so heavily against all these Jews. But then he also had these same Jews in his military as two of his field marshals, because you're messing up the words there.
Right.
He had some Hebrews in his army and some Hebrews as his field marshals and a Hebrew as his personal doctor.
Right.
None of them were Jews, they were Christians. It was the religious Jews he didn't like because they were doing the sex traffic, the CP, the usury, all the terrible things going on. They were way off into it.
Right.
And just subverting the entire consciousness of the German people, as is being done in the United States and the West today.
Oh.
Just go look at your kids' school, you know, textbooks or whatever.
Yep.
And so basically then we just conclude by saying that whether they're white Jews or you can have that battle if you're interested in it. But as far as our ideology goes, we're not interested at all.
Doesn't matter.
Because it doesn't matter one way or the other.
Right.
I don't want an Ethiopian Jew charging me interest or a Sephardic Jew or an Ashkenazi. I'm cool.
Totally.
Or my kids. One of my kids. You know what I mean? Okay.
Okay. Any comments on that? Okay. No comments? Okay, so
Shalom. It seems like they just want to be a part of it. Like they know about the chosen ones. So what they're doing is to just want to be a part of it and saying that you can be in that number regardless who you are. And they continue denouncing of your DNA, your birthright, your anything like that. They, you know, his last words was he don't care.
Right.
As long as you do the right thing. And then what is the right thing to them? Because having people enslaved, doing things that's not good, is that the right thing? Because they really truly probably think that is the right thing to be above whoever.
Right. Yeah. It's a prime example to me how far in left field these people are. They don't even have a clue on what's really going on, what matters and what don't matter. They have no clue. I mean, like I said, to say that birthright don't mean nothing, come on. It's time to turn the page right there. Birthright is everything. Okay? So, with that being said, anybody else have any comments on that? Okay, we'll go to Joshua. Start reading in chapter 68. Okay. Okay. Okay, it says, Joshua, chapter 68, verse 1. And it was at that time, the Spirit of God was upon Miriam, the daughter of Abraham, the sister of Aaron, and she went forth and prophesied about the house, saying, Behold, a son will be born unto us from our father and mother this time, and he will save Israel from the hands of Egypt. So let's look at this again, like I said. When you understand that JC was concocted from our scriptures. So here we go again right here. We know Horus was born of a virgin. Horus was immaculately conceived, right, out of Egypt. So it says, it was at that time, the Spirit of God was upon Miriam, daughter of Abraham, the sister of Aaron. She also the sister of Moses. And she went forth and prophesied about the house, saying, behold, a son that will be born unto us. Same thing they say about JC. But look what it say, from my father and mother. This time, and he will save Israel from the hands of Egypt. So we go to when the Lord of hosts met Abraham, and him and his two angels, he told him Sarah will have a child, a son. This time next year, according to the time of life, which is 9 months, he will have a son. So Abraham and Sarah will have a son. And he called his name Isaac. Right here we see that it says, behold, a son will be born unto us from our father and mother. So it's Abraham and Jochebed, Moses' mother. No immaculate conception at all. It says, and he will save Israel from the hands of Egypt. And when Abraham heard the words of his daughter, he went and took his wife back to the house after he had driven her away at the time when the Pharaoh ordered every male child of the house of Jacob to be thrown into the water. So Abraham took Jacob, his wife, 3 years after he had driven her away, and he came to her, and she conceived. And at the end of 7 months from her conception, she brought forth. They go the same thing. 7 months. So here, 7 months, cycle of life, time of life. At the end of 7 months from her conception, she brought forth a son, and the whole house was filled with great light, as of the light of the sun and moon at the time of their shining. So we see right here, they got all this on Jesus. You go to the manger, all the pictures of the manger, there's a big light shining in the manger, right? So 6. And in those days, the Egyptians conspired to destroy all the Hebrews that there. And the Egyptian women went to Goshen where the children of Israel were, and they carried their young ones upon their shoulders, their babes who could not yet speak. And in those days, when the women of the children of Israel brought forth, each woman had hidden her son from before the Egyptians, that the Egyptians might not know what they were bringing forth, and might not destroy them from the land. And the Egyptian women came to Goshen, and their children who could not speak were upon their shoulders. And when an Egyptian woman came into the house of a Hebrew woman, her babe began to cry. And when it cried, the child that was in a room answered it. So the Egyptian women went and told it at the house of Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh sent his officers to take the children and slay them. Thus did the Egyptians to the Hebrew women all the days. And it was at that time, about 3 months from Jacob's concealment of her son, that the thing was known in the Pharaoh's house. And the women hastened to take away her son before the officers came. And she took for him an ark with bulrushes, dubbed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and said in the flags, and she laid it in the flags by the river brink. Okay? And Sister Miriam stood afar off to know what would be done to him and what would become of her words. And God sent forth at that time a terrible heat in the land of Egypt, which burned up the flesh of man like the sun in its circuit, and it greatly oppressed the Egyptians. And all the Egyptians went down to bathe in the river on account of the consuming heat which burned up their flesh. And Bethel, the daughter of Pharaoh, went also to bathe in the river, owing to the consuming heat, and her maidens walked at the riverside, and all the women of Egypt as well. And Bappa lifted up her eyes to the river, and she saw the ark upon the water, and sent her maid to fetch it. And she opened it and saw the child, and behold, the babe wept, and she had compassion on him. And she said, this is one of the Hebrew children. And all the women of Egypt, walking on the riverside, desired to give him a suck, but he would not suck, for this thing was from the Lord, in order to restore him to his mother's breast. So let's look at that right there. So we got all these Egyptian women right here, right? Evidently, all of them they don't have no kids. They don't have no kids, so you get breast milk whenever you bring forth a child. And your body reacts to that, and you get breast milk. But check it out. So it says, when they saw this child, the spirit of the Most High put a spirit on all of them. All the women of Egypt, walking on the riverside, desired to give him suck. That's the hand of the Lord. But look at this. But he would not suck, for the sting was from the Lord, in order to restore him to his mother's breast. See that? And Miriam, his sister, was at that time amongst Egyptian women all at the riverside, and she saw this thing, and she said to the Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and fetch and nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And the Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the young woman went and called the child's mother. And the Pharaoh's daughter said to Jochebed, take this child away and suckle it for me, and I will pay thee thy wages, 2 bits of silver daily. And the woman took the child and nursed it. So let's look at that. So let's go to the transatlantic slave trade, especially to plantation life. Look what the Israelite women was doing. They were breastfeeding their children, right? And notice what's happening right here. Notice what's happening right here, how, like I was saying before, all these years, they got us, first of all, and they wonder why we in the predicament we in, but you got fabricated milk, Gerber shit that you give our babies when they're young, and then they don't get the breast milk, but the Most High right here put a spirit on them so that Moses got the breast milk from his mama. So how important is that? So like I said, then here we are, we raised up on cow milk. It's not that we going and getting breast milk from another woman. We getting breast milk from a damn cow. Shit. So just think about that. Let that ferment. But the Most High is making a point right here that Moses needs the breast milk from his mother. Right? Okay. Said 23. And the Pharaoh's daughter said to Jochebed, okay, 24. And at the end of 2 years, when the child grew up, she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh, and was unto her as a son. And she called his name Moses, for she said, because I drew him out of the water. And Aram, his father, called his name Chabor, for he said it was for him that he associated with his wife, whom he had turned away. And Jochebed, his mother, called his name Jacqueline, can't say that word, because he said, I have hope for him to the Almighty, and God restored him unto me. And Mary and his mother, his sister, called him Jared, for she descended after him to the river to know what his end would be. And Aaron, his brother, called his name Abba Zonah, saying, my father left my mother and returned her on his account. And Kidad, the father of Abraham, called his name Abador, because of his account that God repaired the breach at the house of Jacob, that they could no longer throw their male children into the water. And their nurses called him Abba Sukkot, saying, in his tabernacle was he hidden for 3 months on account of the children of Ham. And all Israel called his name Shimei, son of Nathaniel, for they said, in his days his God heard their cries and rescued them from their oppressors. And Moses was in Pharaoh's house, and was unto Bethel, Pharaoh's daughter, as a son. And Moses grew up amongst the king's children. Okay, and among the king's children. Let's see. Okay, amongst the king's children, and King of Edom died in those days, in the 18th year of his reign, and was buried in his temple, which he had built for himself as a royal resident in the land of Edom. Okay, so I just finished 68. Anybody have any comments on 68 before I start on 69?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. So I'm in 69, it says 69 and 1. And the king of Edom died in those days in the 18th year of his reign, and was buried in the temple, which he had built for himself as his royal residence in the land of Edom. And the children of Edom sent to Pethah, which is upon the river, and they fetched from there a young man of beautiful eyes and comely aspect, whose name was Saul, and they made him king over them in the place of Shemaiah. And Saul reigned over all the children of Esau in the land of Edom 40 years. When the Pharaoh king of Egypt saw that the counsel which Balaam had advised respecting the children of Israel did not succeed, but they were fruitful and multiplied and increased throughout the land of Egypt. Then the Pharaoh commanded in those days that a proclamation should be issued throughout Egypt to the children of Israel, saying, no man shall diminish anything of his daily labor, and a man who shall be found deficient in his labor which he performs daily, whether in mortar or in brick, then his youngest son shall be put into their place. And the labor of Egypt strengthened upon the children of Israel in those days. And behold, if one brick was deficient in any man's daily labor, the Egyptian took his youngest boy by force from his mother and put him into the building in the place of the bricks which his father had left or wanted. And the men of Egypt did so to all the children of Israel. The men of Egypt did so to all the children of Israel day by day, all the days for a long period. But the tribe of Levi did not at that time work with the Israelites, their brethren, from the beginning. For the children of Levi knew the cunning of the Egyptians, which they exercised at first toward the Israelites. Okay, that was 69. Any comments on that? Chapter 69?
Shalom, everyone. So, what does he mean by the men of Egypt did so to all the children of Israel day by putting them into the building in the place of the brick?
Say it again.
So when it talks about in 69 and verse 7, and the labor of the Egypt strengthened upon the children of Israel in those days, and behold, if one brick was deficient in any man's daily labor, the Egyptians took his youngest boy by force from the mother and put him into the building in the place of the brick, which his father had left wanting. So they put the child there where the brick was supposed to have been and still built, or what is that some analogy or something?
They built it. They kept continuing to build the building with all these kids built into the building.
Oh.
But if you notice, they're still reducing the population. They're attacking the males. They did it before when Moses was born. They was killing all the males. And they're doing it right here.
Yes,
See
sir.
that? And then look at verse 9. Verse 9, if you understand about the Levites, it says, but the tribe of Levi did not at that time work with the Israelites, their brethren. So why? Because so they won't be diminished. They wasn't a part of these children being put in the brick. Say from the beginning, for the children of Levi knew the cunning of the Egyptians, which they exercised at first toward the Israelites. So it's the hand of the Lord on the Levites, protecting them. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Shalom. What at the time when you said you will build it without straw, and is that the same time that they are doing, replacing children with they didn't have the bricks. So I remember they took away and said you would have to continue to build without straw, and straw was what they had to was doing the bricks, putting between the bricks to make it stand.
Well, they mixed the straw with the mud when they made the brick, and then they set it out and it got hard. Then they put it up there, so they made the brick with the straw. But that's two different situations. Right here,
Okay.
right? Just Moses still in the land of Israel. When the decree came out for them to make brick without straws after Moses had left and came back. So what he was trying to do was bring the Pharaoh and his wise men was trying to bring dissension between the Israelite people and Moses. So he making it look like Moses came and started bringing drama on them. That's why they were starting to rebel against Moses, because they're using tactics to throw Moses in the cross with the Israelites. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Right. So I'm in chapter 7. Okay, it says, and in the third year from the birth of Moses, Pharaoh was sitting at a banquet with our Paris, the queen, was sitting at his right hand, and Betha at his left, and the lad Moses was lying on her bosom, and Balaam the son of Beor with his 2 sons, and all the princes of the kingdom were sitting at a table in the king's presence. And the lad stretched forth his hand upon the king's head and took the crown from the king's head, placed it upon his own head. And when the king and the princes saw the work which the boy had done, the king and the princes were terrified. And one man to his neighbor expressed astonishment. And the king said unto the princes who were before him at the table, what speak you, and what say you, O ye princes, in this manner? And what is it to be the judgment against the boy on account of this? So remember what we talked about the other day, Sunday, about princes. These not regular men. These Nephilim that's around him, and they got all of them got different gifts they got from their forefathers, from these angels. They got different gifts they can receive as far as the DNA. They certain things they can do, and all that. They other people can't do, and not only that, they height. So we had read in Isaiah. Let's look at it right quick. Isaiah 19. Okay. So these are people that's all around the Pharaoh. That's why they in astonishment. Okay. So let's look at it. Okay. You go to Isaiah chapter 19. Okay. So it says this the 19, and I'll start at verse 1. It says, the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall enter into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at the presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his neighbor, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom, and the spirit of Egypt, here you go, right here, shall fall in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the council. That's these people right here. The Pharaoh just asked, what should I do to Moses for putting this crown on my head? To destroy the council thereof, and they shall seek to the idols and to the charmers and to them that have familiar spirits and unto the wizards. And the Egyptian will I give over into the hands of the cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, said the Lord, and the Lord of hope, said the Lord of hosts. And the waters shall fail from the sea, and the river shall be wasted and dried up, and they shall return to the river far away, and the brooks. So anyway, so we see right here, this the council. That's it. Then you go to verse 13. It says, the princes of Zorn are become fools, the princes of Nu are deceived. They have also seduced Egypt. See that? So we know he's a fallen angel in the garden that seduced Eve. So same thing right here. The princes of Zorn are become fools. The princes of Nu are deceived. They have also seduced Egypt, even they that are of the state of the tribe thereof. So we see right here the same thing going on. That's why, because when you understand who Ham was it was a 6-day man, but these people came and seduced them, and they no longer following like we know Melchizedek before the flood. It was a righteous king out of Adam's lineage that was dealing with all the people, and they rebelled against him. And one of the reasons is because these fallen angels came. They went to running behind them. And that's what we're looking at right here. So this Zoan is the city, is the hub of where they at. And Nu, all these are cities where these giants at, and quite naturally probably fallen angels there too. But just like in Sodom and Gomorrah. So let me get back over there. Says son, musician answer. Okay, verse 5, 70 and 5. And Balaam the son of Pierre the musician answered before the king and princes, and he said, remember now, O my Lord and king, the dream which thou didst dream many days since, and that which thy servant interpreted unto thee. Now therefore this is the king, this is a child from the Hebrew children, in whom the Spirit of God, and let not my Lord the king imagine that this youngster did this thing without knowledge. Okay. So notice right here, that during the time with Joseph, Pharaoh had dreams and all that, but nobody knows about these dreams right here that the Pharaoh had. And then Balaam, that's over in chapter 19 of Numbers, right? That Balak was dealing with. So he gave the interpretation of this dream, the dream. So evidently Moses had already been prophesied about. Yet the Pharaoh had already had a dream about a man was coming, right? So that's what Balaam was telling him right there. So verse 7 says, for he is a Hebrew boy, and wisdom and understanding are with him, although he is yet a child, and with wisdom has he done this, and chosen unto himself the kingdom of Egypt. For this is the manner of all Hebrews, to deceive the kings of their nobles, to do all these things cunningly, in order to make the kings of the earth and their men tremble. Surely thou knowest that Abraham, their father, acted thus, who deceived the army of Nimrod, king of Babel, and Amalek, king of Gerar, and that he possessed him of the land of the children of Heth, and all the children of the kingdom of Canaan. So we see right here again, like I said, every chance I get, we see right here that This is after Abraham. So this after Abraham, I told you about Genesis 15, prophecy that everybody's saying the 400 years is about America. But right here, this verse 8, for this is the manner of all the Hebrews to deceive kings and their nobles, to do all these things cunningly, in order to make the kings of the earth and their men tremble. So what is he talking about? He not understanding that Michael, these angels coming. It's like when Sarah was taken, the angel came and made Amalek tremble, and came and made Nimrod tremble. That's what they're not understanding. So surely thou knowest that Abraham, their father, acted thus, which deceived the army of Nimrod, king of Babylon, and Amalek, the king of Gerar, and he possessed himself of the land of the children of Heth and all the kingdoms of Canaan. So, like I said before, how can Abraham be talking about America? There's no way. See, and that he descended into Egypt and said to Sarah, his wife, she is my sister, in order to mislead Egypt and his king. His son Isaac also did so when he went to Gerar and dwelt there, and his strength prevailed over the army of Amalek, king of Philistines. So let's look at that. His son Isaac also did so when he went to Gerar and dwelt there, and his strength prevailed over the army, Lord of hosts. That's his strength. See that? And he also thought of making the kingdom of the Philistines stumble, and saying that Rebekah, his wife, was his sister. Jacob also dealt treacherously with his brother, and took from his hand his birthright and his blessing. And he went then to Panorama, to the house of Laman, his mother's brother, and cunningly obtained from him his daughter, his cattle, all belonging to him, and fled away and returned to the land of Canaan, to his brother, to his father. So right here, this guy right here, Balaam, just denigrating Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? 15, and his sons sold their brothers Joseph, who went down into Egypt and became a slave, and was placed in the prison house for 12 years, until the former Pharaoh dreamed dreams and withdrew him from the prison house and magnified him above all the princes in Egypt on account of his interpreting his dreams to him. And when God caused a famine throughout the land, he sent for and brought his father and all his brothers and the whole of his father's household, and supported them without price or reward, and bought the Egyptians for slaves. Now therefore, my Lord King, behold, this child has risen up in their stead in Egypt, to do according to their deeds, and to trifle with every king, prince, and judge. If it please the king, let us now spill his blood upon the ground, lest he grow up and take away the government from thy hands, and the hope of Egypt perish after he shall have reigned. And excuse me. And Balaam said to the king, let us moreover call for all the judges of Egypt and the wise men thereof, and let us know if the judgment of death is due to this boy, as thou didst say, and then we shall slay him. And the Pharaoh sent and called for all the wise men of Egypt, and they came before the king. Then here you go. And the angel of the Lord came amongst them, and he was like one of the wise men of Egypt. And the king said to the wise men, surely ye have heard what this Hebrew boy who is in the house of his has done, and thus has Balaam judged in the matter. Now judge you also, and see what it do to this boy for the act he has committed. And the angel, who seemed like one of the wise men of Pharaoh, answered and said unto his fellows, before all the wise men of Egypt, and before the king and his princes, if it please the king, that the king send for men who shall bring before him an onyx stone and a coal of fire, and place them before the child. And if the child shall stretch forth his hand and take the onyx stone, then shall we know that that with wisdom has the youth done all that he had done, and must slay him. Okay. But if he stretch forth his hand upon the coal, then shall we know that it was not with knowledge that he did this thing, and he shall live. And the king seemed good, and the thing seemed good in the king's eyes of the king and the princes. So the king did according to the word of the angel of the Lord. And the king answered, ordered the onyx stone and the coal be brought and placed before Moses. And they placed the boy before them, and the lad endeavored to stretch forth his hand to the onyx stone, but the angel of the Lord took his hand, placed it upon the coal, and the coal became extinguished in his hand, and he lifted it up, and he put it into his mouth, and burned part of his lips and part of his tongue, and he became heavy in his mouth and tongue. This is why Moses stumbled. And when the king and the princes saw this, they knew that Moses had not acted with wisdom in taking off the crown from the king's head. So the king and the princes restrained from slaying the child. So Moses remained in the Pharaoh's house, growing up, and the Lord was with him. And while the boy was in the king's house, he was robed in purple, and he grew among the children of the king. And when Moses grew up in the king's house, Betha, the daughter of Pharaoh, considered him as a son, and all the household of Pharaoh honored him, and all the men of Egypt were afraid of him. And he daily went forth and came into the land of Goshen, where his brethren, the children of Israel, were. And Moses saw them daily in shortness of breath and hard labor. And Moses asked them, saying, where is this labor meted out unto you day by day? And they said unto him all that had befallen them, and all the injunctions which the Pharaoh had put upon them before his birth. And they told him all the counsel which Balaam, the son of Beor, had counseled against them, and what he had also counseled against him in order to slay him when he had been taken, when he had taken the king's crown from his head. And when Moses heard these things, his anger was kindled against Balaam, and he sought to kill him. And he was in ambush for him day by day. And Balaam was afraid of Moses. And he and his two sons rose up and went forth from Egypt, and they fled and delivered their souls and betook themselves to the land of Cush, to Kankish, king of Cush. And Moses was in the king's house, going out and coming in, and the Lord gave him favor in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants, and in the eyes of all the people of Egypt. And they loved Moses exceedingly. And the day arrived when Moses went to Goshen to see his brethren, that he saw the children of Israel in their burden and hard labor. And Moses was aggrieved on their account. And Moses returned to Egypt and came to the house of Pharaoh and came before the king, and Moses bowed down before the king. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, I pray thee, my Lord, I have come to seek a small request from thee. Turn not away my face empty. And the Pharaoh said unto him, speak. And Moses said to the Pharaoh, let there be given unto thy servants, the children of Israel, who was in Goshen, one day to rest therein from their labor. And the king answered Moses, saying, behold, I have lifted up thy face in this thing, and grant thy request. And the Pharaoh ordered a proclamation to be issued throughout Egypt and Goshen, saying, to you, all the children of Israel, thus says the king, for 6 days you shall do your work and labor, but on the 7th day you shall rest, and shall not perform any work. Thus shall you do all the days, as the king and Moses, the son of Betha, have commanded. And Moses rejoiced at this thing which the king had granted to him, and all the children of Israel did as Moses ordered them. From this time, for this thing was from the Lord to the children of Israel, for the Lord had begun to remember the children of Israel to save them from for the sake of their fathers. And the Lord was with Moses, and his fame went throughout Egypt. Moses became great in the eyes of all Egyptians, and in the eyes of all the children of Israel, seeking good for his people Israel, and speaking words of peace regarding them to the king. Okay? So anybody have any comments on that? We're gonna stop right there. Anybody have any comments? So go ahead.
Um, I was just going to say how everything is correlating to the New Testament, how they changed everything around here, and to take the stories and make them fit for the New Testament.
Right. And left out stuff that
Yes,
was
sir.
important. Like why Moses had a heavy mouth. Okay? They don't tell you that. And the reason being is because we know it's the angel that came there and delivered Moses. They don't want you to know that. Not Jesus. But the thing I want to shine a light on right quick before we close is it says in 49, 48, and Moses rejoiced at the thing. So I don't know if anybody peeped that out, but well, in the beginning, the Lord told he created the earth, the world, the earth, and the universe. He did all in 7 days, right? 6 days he worked, 7 days, and the seventh day he rested. And so Moses, he raised in the house of Pharaoh. He knows he's Hebrew, but he's not living under Hebrew custom. But instead, in 47, he asked the Pharaoh for a day of rest, right? So that's supernatural. So 47 says, to you, the Pharaoh said, to you, all the children of Israel, thus says the king, for 6 days you shall do your work and labor, but on the seventh day you shall rest. So this is the Most High. See that? So then it says, and so come to the day, and transatlantic slave trade, the plantations, all the stuff that happened to us. It says, so when this was a sign for the Israelites. Then it says, and shall not perform any work. Thus shall ye do all the days of all the days. And the king and Moses, son of Bethel, as the king of Moses, as the king and Moses, the son of Bethel, have commanded. Now here you go. Let's understand it. 48. Moses rejoiced at this thing which the king had granted to him. And all the children of Israel did as Moses ordered them. Now here you go. 49. For the thing was from the Lord, right? Come to the day and look at what we're looking at. It says, for this thing is from the Lord to the children of Israel. For the Lord had begun to remember the children of Israel to save them for the sake of their fathers. So we're looking at that now. Like I said, look what's happening in Israel. Just 2 years ago, you wouldn't have been no such thing as the nations turning against Israel and all the things you see happening. So these are signs right here, like it said, for the thing is from the Lord to the children of Israel. For the Lord has begun, just like he did then, he's doing it right now. The Lord has begun to remember the children of Israel to save them for the sake of their fathers. And the Lord was with Moses, and fame went throughout all Egypt. Okay. See that?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
Shall I?
Anybody got? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. So, as the seventh day of rest, and they, as the West made the seventh day a Sunday, but we're going back to Sabbath day, which is a Saturday. But they changed it to, I think one of the Roman kings changed it to Sunday, and that's why a lot of people don't, they go to the building, the church, on a Sunday, and they call that the day of rest. But it really is the seventh day, which is the Sabbath day.
Right.
Am I correct?
Right. That was started in the beginning, in Genesis. When he says 6 days, let me read it. So we go back to Genesis chapter 2. So it says, Genesis chapter 2 says, Okay. Chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day, sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which he had created and made. So that's when it was established. So all he doing right here, like I said, this ain't like today. Everybody in Hebrews, everybody in Israelites. So when the Israelites saw this right here, that was a sign for them that the Most High he returned to them. So we see the same thing happening now. The things that's happening. He's gonna return. You know? Okay? And it's only for the eyes of the Israelites, the awakened ones, the ones that know who they God are, can see those things. It don't have nothing to do with Jesus. Okay? Anybody else got anything? Okay.
No,
So
sir.
with that being said, somebody got something?
No, sir. I was just saying no.
Okay. So yeah, so with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom to everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow for reading through the Tanakh. It's at 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time. Okay.
Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.